Hi, Vic.
Hey, Vic.
Don, Jeremy, Gordon, how's everyone?
Surviving. Still in shock, but mostly
Okay.
surviving.
Yeah.
I found out why I wasn't coming in the last meeting on the thing. There's a little gadget on top of there. I finally found the paper on. I looked at it, and it'd been turned off. So
Yeah.
Things like that happen.
Well,
Hi, Jeremy.
I'm a retired history teacher, and I never thought I'd live long enough to see what's happened the past few days. It's incredible, and I would suggest we talk about that a few minutes. You don't want to talk about it? Oh. What do you think about it, Gordon?
I have no comment.
Okay.
No comment.
Bad, no comment.
No.
Well,
it's not over. That's the trouble. We still have
that's correct. Yeah.
We still have an inauguration to go to, and I don't know if there's enough police force in the country to protect everybody.
There's enough military.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they'll have to call in the military, but that's pretty extreme too.
It seems like that those people that started that has been to several of these meetings all over the United States. I know up in Louisville, there was a bunch that some lady was wanting to know about this vacant house, why there were so many people in it, 9 or 10. And she reported them to the police, and they checked it, and they were all up from the New York, came down there to celebrate. It seemed like they all group up and cause all of this trouble.
Well, it's not good. When you have a crowd that's susceptible to suggestion, it just take a few people say, okay, let's go. And then everybody say, oh yeah, hey, let's go.
I wonder if I would suggest the inauguration be held inside someplace. There's so many thousands of people that will show up, and a lot of the same people that were there Wednesday have indicated they're going to show up again on the 20th.
Well, I think they've said they're not going to have the inauguration. They're not going to have people present at the inauguration. So maybe they will do it in a secure place.
Well, let's hope so.
What a frightening situation.
Yep. I was mesmerized. I turned the TV on when Trump's speech was in the middle of his speech, and then I sat in front of the TV for about 6 or 7 hours. I couldn't believe everything I was seeing. Now, there's some teacher acquaintance of mine that are real strong Trump supporters, and some are real strong Biden supporters. And how do you balance that with, let's say, 8th graders? I taught 8th grade for years and years, and I tried my best to be sort of neutral. I don't know whether I could do a very good job in this situation or not.
I saw a little thing on Facebook a while ago and said it really doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican as long as you're an American.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Jeremy, are you with us?
I won't ask you how the weather is there and everything and stuff, but it's been cloudy all day. I'm afraid to ask John.
I know the answer to John, yeah.
How's your eruption going over there, John? Is it through?
No, it's still going.
Still going.
Still going.
Now,
how far are you from that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, different island. That's over on the Big Island. We're on a lot of
it's on the Big Island. It's not on your island then. Huh?
No.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Are there any inactive volcanoes on your island, John?
Well, by inactive, what do you mean? There's these are dormant. They haven't gone off for, I think the last eruption was 15,000 years ago or something.
Yeah.
So we probably don't need to worry about them. But Maui's got a big one, and Big Island has got 3 there that are all possible.
Okay.
We
Was
got
that
more to worry
Diamond
about than
Head?
volcanoes.
15,000 years ago.
Diamond's Head, right? I said
Diamond's Head,
15,000. I maybe 40,000. I don't know. In that, it's in the tens of thousands. Diamond Head and Cocoa Head, right?
All those islands were made from volcano eruptions, weren't they?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
All the
John,
way
how many of those islands have you been on, John?
All of them.
All the islands.
Oh yeah, one time or another.
Okay.
I drove entirely around Oahu one day. That was interesting.
You went, yeah, going all the way around. You know, there's
Yeah.
a bus route that goes around. They call it Circle Island. So you can buy one bus ticket and do the whole 100-mile trip.
Well, that's great. Yeah, we did that on a Sunday, and we smelled something cooking, but just left. We left the Hilton Hotel, and we smelled something cooking. We stopped at a little school, and I asked some boy, "What are they cooking?" He said, "Hui hui chicken."
Right, huli, huli,
Yeah,
huli,
hooty hooty. So
huli,
we had
huli, Huli. That means turn
Well,
over.
what was it?
That means
it was
turn
good.
over.
It was
So
good.
It's on a
We
stick,
bought that,
on a
and
spit.
we bought that and drove around Diamond Head, and very good chicken. We enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
yeah. That's one of our staples.
Have you all noticed that garden suspenders and stuff, it seems as though as we get older that your rear end kind of disappears and your belt won't hold your pants up. Is that your problem, Gordon?
These are my special.
Megenity.
Can you see the flag?
I see the flag.
Michael Pale,
Here's-
welcome, Michael.
There's Mike
Hey, how
again.
are you?
Doing good, Michael. You're
Hi,
looking
Michael.
good, buddy.
Looks like Michael's starting to grow a beard. Are you going to grow a beard, Mike?
Would you say you were going to look like Abraham Lincoln? Is that what you said?
Hi,
Yeah,
Michael.
I want to look like Abraham Lincoln, yes.
Well, you're not caught up with your brother yet.
Take a
How's
while.
Mike?
Okay, I've got a question to ask, sort of in conjunction with what we were discussing last month. And the question is this, for everyone that grew up in English, Indiana, how many courthouses, permanent and temporary, has Crawford County have? Buildings now, think about it.
How many courthouses?
Yes, sir.
I
Well,
would say 3.
one in Leavenworth in English,
Okay,
Fredonia.
Marengo,
Fredonia.
No, not Marengo, but Fredonia, and there's still one more.
there's a total of 5.
5.
Can anyone name now permanent and temporary courthouses? Who can name all 5 of them?
Well, 2 in English to start with, or
Right.
to end with, rather. English 2, Leavenworth, Fredonia, and
I don't think there's one at Mount Sterling.
Oh,
I can't think who the first one was.
okay. The first building was in Leavenworth. That's one.
Well, that's the first building.
We're not talking about Mount Sterling. They didn't have a building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought they didn't have water.
Oh, that was it. They didn't have water, so they didn't have a building. Second one was in Leavenworth. Third one was in English. The fourth one was in English, and the fifth one was in English. Now, who can name the 3 that were in English?
Were you talking about the community building?
That's exactly right, Bob.
Okay, I remember when it was there.
Yes, sir.
Building there.
When they were tearing down the old 1890s or 1880s building, they vacated out and used the community building for about a year. The courthouse, the courtroom was upstairs on the gym floor, and there were different offices down in the basement. Yeah.
Ah, so
Do you remember that, Mike?
What?
When the courthouse was in the community building just for about a year.
I kind of remember, yeah,
Yeah,
just barely. Don't remember much about it.
right.
what year was that, Vic?
That would have been when they built the little flat top building up on top of the hill that's abandoned now, but it's still there, right, Bob? The courthouse up on Courthouse Hill, it's still there, the flat top building.
Yeah, you know, we had to change to where the courtroom was up there to our Masonic meeting place.
That's right, I heard that.
They went in, and Mike Huddleston and a bunch of the boys were Masons, and they changed the whole courtroom. And we had a real nice one up there, but they've never cleaned out a lot of the records that they had there. I was looking in one place and found a letter from Messamore.
Oh, really?
You can imagine that. But they're stacked up there, and finally the mildew and everything else got so bad that the people were being affected with it when we had held our Masonic Lodge. And so we finally run out of members coming out of there. So we finally closed up the lodge, and we moved all the members to Eckerty. So we meet in Eckerty anymore.
Well, yeah. Now, Bob, since you're a Mason, and Gordon, you're a Mason too, I wanted to ask you something. At our fire museum, we've got a wooden box, and I work at the fire museum in Jeffersonville every Friday, and it's got white marbles and black marbles in it. Do either one of you know what that wooden box would be used for?
Sure. For elections.
For elections, that's
Elections.
right.
That's right.
Our members, bringing in a new member.
That's right. And for you guys that, John and Mike and Jeremy, maybe you don't understand what we're talking about, but it's a voting system, and the volunteer firemen used it way back in the early 1800s. And if you wanted a new volunteer fireman to come in, or in this case, a new Mason to come in, you'd reach in and get a white marble, cup it in your hand, and drop it in another part of the box. And that meant you were voting yes. But if just one person reached in and got a black marble and dropped it in secretly, that person has been, what's the term, Bob?
Well, he wasn't elected.
Blackballed.
Blackball.
Blackballed. That's the term that's been used. Gordon, did you guys use it? Blackballed?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a Roman technique, right?
It was what?
From the Romans, black and white stones.
You know, I'm not sure about that. I do not know the history, how far back it goes. I do know that the box we have is from about 1850, and it's got two compartments. One is full of white and black marbles. And if you find one black marble after everybody's voted, that person has been blackballed. But we had two firemen from Kent, Indiana in there recently. That's north of Madison, a small volunteer group. And they said, "Oh, we've got a box like that." And I said, "Oh, you do? It's just on display?" "Oh, no, we use it." So they're still using their blackball box. And I think some of the Mason groups still use theirs, don't they, guys?
I think we all do.
Okay. All right.
We haven't had one in English since I've been on the fire department, and that goes back to 1950. And we usually a guy has to turn in deal there to see whether he wants on there or not. Has all the information on it and everything, and he has to have either a GED or he graduated from high school.
Yeah.
And they vote on him, and it's just yay or nay.
Okay.
stuff. They usually they take the permit to this guy's coming in, and they have the guy that's applying for membership to read it and things. And it gets all whether he's had any accidents or anything like that, or picked up for DUI or something. And
Yeah.
and they read that and everything, and that pertains to it. And then they have to take several weeks of training, and they have to take a lot of first aid. We have 1 week a month, or one meeting night a month, just for mostly first aid and operating the machinery.
Okay, is Michael Benham still the chief, the fire chief?
Mike
Benham?
Yes.
Mike Benham.
He has had the KOV and stuff. That he has just been off for 5 weeks, and this last week is the first time he's made a run.
Okay.
So
Well, now I heard a rumor that that in the Newtown meeting 25 years ago, in the Newtown, one of the streets was named after one of the volunteer firemen. Did you ever
it
hear that?
was.
Gordon, have you ever heard that?
No, I had not heard that.
Oh, yes, sir. A very important guy from English, Indiana. You know who it was, John?
Was it Strawberry?
Strawberry Lane. Yes, sir. Named after Bob.
Strawberry Lane.
Now, just a little side note to that. I worked at the Census Bureau in 58, 59, getting ready for the 1960 census. I worked in the geography section, and I pulled the map out for English, Indiana. And I looked it over. Most of the streets were not named. So I got a stylus, and I started naming streets. I named Beasley Road after Bill Beasley. You know where that is, Bob, across from your house?
Yes, sir. It's close to me.
Yeah, I named
I
Hillside
I
Drive.
can see it from here.
Hillside Drive, where I used to live on.
Mhm.
Church Street that ran in front of the Methodist Church. And I forget what other streets, but I just pinned those in and put it back in the file. Years later, they put signs up around English, and they use those same signs on what I created in the Census Bureau.
True. High Street up by the schoolhouse.
Yeah,
I live on Sloan Avenue.
that's right.
That was the name. That was the name of when they built the thing up East Fifth Street and had lots made up that was named after a Sloan. Flanigan Street.
I've never heard of a Flanigan Street.
They used to call that, and then they changed it.
Oh, did they? Okay. Well,
But
now
I'll tell you, somebody steals most of our street signs.
oh, really?
Very much so. They up in the new town that they missed, and they stole mine, so they don't have the sign up for Strawberry Lane.
Well, I'd go to the town council about that, Bob. Town board.
I think they would have to probably welt the sign on there and set it in concrete.
Probably. Okay, I've got a sheet here, and have you seen this about English High School and the
Yes, sir.
history of it?
Uh-huh.
And I think we've talked about where the first high school was, and it was way down the west end of town. Now, none of us remember that, but you remember the reason they moved it?
Flood.
Kind of flood,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
flooded out.
It was right there by where I guess Brownstown and Camp Park came in.
Yep. It's just about, they put it where Brownstown Stream, and I forget the names of the streams now, where they met together there. And
Camp Cork is the other one.
it only lasted 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
It said English High School was organized in 1891 on a 3-year non-commissioned basis by John H. Luckett, graduate of Indiana University. It was the only high school teacher. The course included Latin, higher math, and world history. First class, some of these names make sense. We begin to remember them. Was G.B. Hammond, Guido Hammond, Martin Brown, and Minnie Brown. They graduated in 1894. Heard those names before, haven't you, Bob?
I knew a lot of them.
Yeah. Superintendent and president of the board of trustees. Okay, Martin Brown taught, entered the ministry, and became a poet of some note. Minnie Brown was a very successful teacher. Superintendents were John Luckett, G.B. Hammond, C.A. Robertson, Charles Riddle, E.B. Sonner, and H.W. Mock. Henry Mock was the superintendent there. In 1907, through the efforts of S.A. Beals, now we all remember him, I think.
Stewart.
Jeremy.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Sure.
Curriculum was broadened, more teachers were added to the faculty, and the school was placed on the certified list. 1910, the curriculum was broadened, additional teachers were employed. And that time the school had graduated 431 students. I don't get that. That's way too many, I think. First building was a two-story frame building at the west end of town. And the new building was built in 1914. 1913, the State Board of Health condemned, that was the old building, as being unsanitary and unfit for school use because it was situated on those streams. School board in the early days of the new building was James Goodwin, J.W. Patton, Alva Robertson. Trustees of Sterling Township, assisted by the county superintendent, made English and Sterling Township a joint high school district under an act of the General Assembly of 1911. Purchased the present site and elected the building. First teachers in 1914, Lee Taylor, superintendent Harrison Toney, principal Charles Wood, manual training, Hazel Chin, music and art, Leonard Cummins, we remember him, 7th and 8th, E.R. Blevins, 5th and 6th, Ivan Toney, 3rd and 4th, J.S. Melton, 1st and 2nd. A lot of those names I can remember, and I know Bob can probably remember. John, you remember some of them too, don't you?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the teachers lived in town then. And East Fifth Street was the deal where the lawyers and the merchants lived.
Right.
And the businessmen in there. That was the main street. That was kind of that uptown English.
Yeah.
Right.
And I always wondered when I was a little kid, I'd see that big engraved limestone stone above the front entrance that said Joint High School, English Sterling Joint High School. Now, I'd always heard of beer joints and things like that. And I thought, what is that? And I never did know until maybe I was in high school. And I finally figured it out that it was Sterling Township and English went together to form one school.
One school. You know,
I thought it was Sterling beer.
Sterling beer.
well, I tell you, one Halloween night that the JC sign ended up there where that joint school was over the door.
Well, I wish when they tore this building down that someone would have saved that big engraved limestone stone. That would have been the Historical Society would have been very interested in that. It disappeared. I guess it was just in the rubble.
Well, you know, I located when they started the golf course out there and opened up the building of one of the buildings that Bill Boss had. And there was a sign in there had English Varsity E Club. Do you remember that?
That's right. That's right.
Stuff. And that disappeared. I don't know where in the hell it went to.
I saw it when the golf course was being built. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
there
don't
was-
know what happened. And you know, years ago, when they first started the first fire department, my brother Clyde, or Cookie, is known as some way, made a plaque, and he had it up in the firehouse. And sometimes, I don't know when, that sign disappeared. we looked and looked and looked, to see if we could find it so we could put it in the new firehouse, and we never could find it, or we couldn't find out what happened to it.
Yeah. Michael, what do you do for pastime out there in Virginia? You
I guess take a nap, I think.
take a nap, Michael? You take naps sometimes?
What's that?
Do you take a nap occasionally, Michael?
Yeah.
Yep, I think we all do. Now,
Especially after you eat.
I got my daughter fixed me up yesterday with my first vaccine shot. I'm going to get it on the 20th of this month. If you're 80 or over, and I think some of us qualify, Jeremy, not you, sorry, you won't get your shot for a while. I think it's in the state of Indiana, I think if you're 80 or over in your county, you need to make
75. 70,
Pardon?
I think 75 or over.
But it's
That's
80.
in Hawaii.
It's
Indiana,
80
it's
here.
80.
but
Oh, it's
It's
80?
80 for us. I'm scheduled for Thursday this week.
Okay, good. Good for you, Gordon. Well, we
Figured out how to schedule yet. So I wrote a letter to my doctor yesterday, emailing him, say, hey, how are we gonna know? Are we supposed to do it or schedule ourselves, or is Kaiser gonna send me a notice or what? So I haven't heard from him yet. He'll probably send me a message tomorrow.
In the state of Indiana, you go through the health department at the state and you can register online.
Yeah.
And it's as usual, a lot of garbage to walk through to get it all registered, but you get there. And of course, they put in all the HIPAA requirements and all of that.
Well, that could be the same here, but I haven't seen any notification. I'll see. We're pretty well bubbled back here in our little cul-de-sac. Don't see too many people too often. So
Well, our health department was supposed to get them, but they haven't come up with it yet. And I qualify on account of age and first responders.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess I'll probably just hang out with a little Canadian mist until I get that.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, the R bar is always.
We learned from Sarah Beth Combs that she registered on the health or on the website and is getting her shot this week. They're in English at the health department. So our understanding is they've got shots there.
Well,
also Elaine commented that Elaine's an emergency room nurse. She's had her second shot already.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have doctor friends in Miami who've had both shots already. In Bend, Oregon, who've had both shots, and they're wasting vaccines. They're throwing them away in Bend, not South Bend, but Bend, Oregon.
Throwing them away because they can't get people to take them?
I don't know if it's I don't know the reason why. If it's that they can't get people to take them, or if it's the ones that have to be refrigerated.
Yeah, that seems terrible.
A good friend of mine.
Have a lot of people that aren't going to take them, but they don't remember back in the days of polio.
They don't. They don't.
Well, it's a selfish thing unless you got a good reason. It's a selfish thing to not take it because you're endangering other people by exposing yourself.
A good friend of mine was terribly anemic, and the doctors didn't know why. And they did bone marrow biopsy. That didn't prove any problem. And he was having transfusions 1 to 2 times a week. And he was in trouble already. But His wife found him on the floor. He'd been sleeping in the recliner, had him taken to the hospital. To my knowledge, he had never been tested for COVID. But when he got to the hospital and died, I happened to get a copy of the death certificate because he and I were involved with various organizations, and I had to pick up some things that he'd been doing. And one of those was the horse patrol. And so the death certificate shows approximate cause of COVID and pneumonia, and underlying cause was severe anemia. So they had to do that test at the hospital, so far as I know. It's very sobering to think about it.
Yeah, if you really think about teaching, for instance, which I've been involved in that for many years, but some teachers that I know say, oh, I'm not going to get that shot. Well, if I've got children in that teacher's classroom, I may want proof that that teacher has the shot. Or if I'm president of the school board, I may say, hey, all of our teachers need to have the shots. I wonder if they're going to make any rules state by state on that.
Well, since it affects general health of the community, they should. That's something that they should have the right to do.
I think so.
I mean, they require kids to have shots, right?
Students are required to have shots before they can enroll in schools in Indiana, and I think all states are probably like that.
Should be.
Yeah.
But there's still some people will stand back and say, you're violating my right to do what I want to do.
Well,
And I back off and say, yeah, but I want to drive on the left side of the road, but they don't let me do that.
Yep. I had a lady friend that told me recently, a lady acquaintance that said, are you going to get that shot, Vic? And I said, yes. And she said, you know what's in that shot? I said, no. There's a tiny microchip they're putting in there, and they'll be able to track you wherever you go. How do you talk to someone like that? I said, oh,
ask them how small. Ask them how small that microchip is, and if it can go through the and that needle.
I said, we got cell phones; they can track us right now if we've got cell phones.
That's right.
That's
And
true.
who would want to track us anyway?
Well, yeah, you could just reply and say, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to be famous.
Yeah,
You could take them down to Megenity's cave.
yeah, really,
You'd probably get them lost.
probably.
Well, since our last meeting a month ago, there's been a couple of passings, Alma Lee Hanger and Pauline Staniford.
Now, which Staniford?
Pauline.
Who is that, Bob?
I don't know what was the first name?
Pauline Staniford.
Oh, Pauline
Staniford.
Stanford.
Yeah.
Well, she passed away, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. How was she related to Donnie?
A sister. She was the
that's his.
one. There were three of them: Pauline, Maxine, and Donnie.
Okay,
She's married to Bill Crawford when she lived here in English.
that's right. That is right.
And you know her. There's a little cemetery at the Resort Cemetery. I've been going off now for about 50 years, and they have veteran stone out there and everything. And this guy came and dropped in and saw me, was talking to me, and he was Bill, and he lives at Georgetown now. And he said he didn't know anybody was doing that out there. I think some of his relations is buried there. And he said, let him know next time I go out there, and he would help me. So
Was that Paul Crawford?
I've got his name someplace. I forget what his name is. So one of those boys died. I forget which one.
So Maxine survives?
Yeah, Maxine is living over in, I think, Virginia with Mike might know where she's at.
Yeah, that's right. Maxine is in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay. she started out school with me in the first grade. And when I come to the second grade, there were so many kids in there, they didn't have seats for them. So they skipped about 5 students to the third grade, and Maxine was one of them.
Bob, a little while before your brother Clyde passed away, I visited him out at his house, and we went over genealogy material. And he showed me where we were related back about 3 generations. I think that his great-great-grandmother was my great-great-great-grandmother, and I forget and he told me where she was buried off Brownstown Road. And I think it's an abandoned cemetery. And he said, now, and I remember him saying, Bob knows where that cemetery is. That makes sense, Bob?
It probably was out where Glenn King used to live. Fuzzy Zeller owns that property now. And I think our great-great-grandfather was buried there, and they have a bridge out there with the name of, after Ace King. And he was married to Ace King's daughter.
Okay.
I don't know how I came up with that. I had some of the stuff that Clyde left and Helen, they were going down to the genealogy, and I gave it to Scott Eastridge. That's Bud Joe's son.
Okay. Now, has everybody got all their family pictures listed on the back, who they are?
Oh, I don't think so.
Most
Marilyn, yeah, God, I mean, she said, I'm going through all my pictures now, and I'm putting names on the back of them.
Yep. Before my mother passed away, we went through a whole ton of pictures, and she knew most of them. A few of them she didn't know. And now I'm the inheritor of all the family pictures on my mother's side, my father's side. So I've got all of them labeled as best I can, so they'll be hopefully passed on to someone that will take care of them.
I had a big box, as you can imagine, a big box of pictures of my family, and as the older, at first, my oldest sister Grace, number 1, had all those for a long time, and then when we got those from Mom and Dad when they passed away, they just kept moving. They got to me, and I finally just took them down to number 14. And so Marcia has all the family pictures now. She's the youngest.
I gave mine to my nieces and nephews, and occasionally there'll be something on Facebook come up there, and it will be a picture of me years and years ago.
I got a big stack of pictures that I rescued from the Flanigan house before we tore it down. And I scanned them and put them on my SmugMug site and ask people if they could identify some of the pictures. And the ones that, I mean, when Edna was still living, I went through a lot of them with her and got a good ID. But at this point, I think there's no hope whatever of adding to those identifications. And my temptation is just to toss those pictures. Why keep them if we don't know who they are?
Yeah, that's right.
You know.
But there's something, you hate to do that. You hate to throw away a photograph, especially an old photograph.
Well, there wasn't too many people took pictures back then, and
that's right.
Did like the Bentz family and the Gobbles family, and they've all disappeared. I don't know where in the world. I thought maybe Donald Sloan should have a bunch of those, but Donald died in Florida, and I don't know who got those pictures. His brother George W. Had some children. I don't know where they ended up with them or not. But the Bentz family, I don't know what happened to them.
Some of the pictures I've got apparently were rescued from Branch Schleser's house next door when it burned. And I'm just guessing that because there are a few there that I recognize, of Brent, Blanche, and Kurt. So they probably belong to that family. But I have no idea whatever I guess the Poes would be her daughter. Poe was, anyway, he was one of their family. Russell Poe, was it Russell? Doc Poe? I don't, they used to live in
It was a Russell Poe.
Russell Poe. They used to live in a trailer there on a lot right next to that house. But I have no idea where they are. No idea how to get in touch with them.
You know,
So
Jimmy Stewart published a book on his life and everything. And in it, he had some pictures that was really very interesting, but he never had the names on any of them. But it has his deal when he was a kid, and no sense it came up with that. I was thinking about his name, Ron Kissel, and I had him on Facebook, and I gave a phone number to call of Jeremy's, and I don't know whether he ever got in touch with him or not.
I saw your message
No,
on,
I never heard from him.
Never heard from him. Okay.
Bob, I saw your message on that, and I sent Ron a private message and asked him if he planned to join us today. Have not heard back from him.
You haven't heard back. Okay. I was just wondering, did he retire from the Navy?
Yes,
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes, I think he was a chief petty officer.
Chief Petty Officer, you know, and Julian Long's son was a chief warrant officer on that, and he passed away here a couple of years ago. Anthony or Tony,
Yeah.
and baby, as we know, his baby brother Guy
Baby
Alexander.
brother, yeah,
He passed away this last year.
he sure did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about Daisy?
Daisy, she finally died. I think she was close to 100 years old.
Yeah.
And you know, she had a sister that a few years ago, Angela told me she was 105 years old
Oh,
and a nursing home in Ohio, but she was a graduate from English high school. This is either 31 or 32.
wow.
Well, I was going to say about any unidentified photos, you could always send those to the Historical Society because there might be people still in the county, or they could put some things up on Facebook and see if anybody knows anybody. But if you're just going to throw them away otherwise, it's worth at least sending them on and let them decide what they do with them.
Good idea.
well, if you think they'd be welcome, if they'd welcome those pictures, I'd be happy to send them into the Historical Society.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they'd appreciate it.
Well, I don't know, the person who gets them handed to them and says, do something with these, they might not appreciate it.
They bought a building, so they can add it to their archives, even if they don't. So sometimes people come in there. I mean, as you can imagine, infrequently, but sometimes people who live in the county or maybe when they're back visiting people will physically come through to do some research on their family, or someone who maybe isn't in the area anymore will send a note saying that they're looking for information about this line of their family. So, it's I would think worth handing it over, and at least in good conscience, you're not destroying photos. And then once it's out of your hands, you don't have to worry about if it's being put to good use or not. But my guess would be, I mean, especially if they're any good, good photos, but very, very clear photos, or groups of people. I mean, it could be that that some of the people, get identified, but outside of our family, like you said, you've already you've already sort of tapped out on our family members who might be able to identify, but who knows who else might recognize or maybe have a copy of the same picture and be able to tell about it. I mean, I wouldn't get my hopes up.
I'll certainly do that.
I would think it would be good if you do send them, of course, if you tell them where you got them and
right.
conjecture about the possibility of another family.
Right.
That's a good idea, I think, to explain to them.
I'll include all the information I have in it.
Right. That would be great.
You know, the
Hey, Granddad.
Huh?
Hey, I'm trying to remember if you've told the story about delivering coal to Granny Brown when Bob has been on this call. I know you've told the story before, but I don't know if you've told it to him.
About me going to Granny Brown's house?
Yeah, delivering coal.
Yeah, I did. Granny Brown and Washington. There were about 3 or 4 older people there that Grandmother Flanigan had me carry coal in for them.
Yeah, and you've got a story about Granny Brown specifically when she went to pay you one time.
Well, she tried, I think she was going to give me $1 a month for carrying coal. And she kept her money in her Bible, and she went up to get that dollar, and she'd pulled out a 20, and I said, "No, Granny, that's not right. That's a 20." And she was almost blind, but I thought it's nice I was honest, wasn't it?
That's the story.
yeah.
I guess, Bob, you don't heat your house with coal anymore, do you?
No. That's when we remodeled this and everything, I built a coal house in the basement, but that's where our furnace is. we made use of it, but there's never a lump of coal in there.
Yeah.
not even on Christmas morning.
Any of you remember Ben Wilkes that used to come through English in the tent show
Yeah.
and stuff?
Pitch a big tent down in the park and
Down at the park. I think it cost
Chautauqua.
maybe 10 cents to get in. He played a trumpet out front and had a fanfare, and it was quite a deal. He came faithfully there for every year.
And then one of the local organizations every year would set up a tent to have a gambling. I don't know what kind of gambling they did, but that tent was stored in Granddad Flanigan's barn in the back. And when Ben Wilkes would come, they'd haul that out and take it down and set it up.
Yeah, it was something. It was pretty good. I think maybe it cost another nickel when you got to go to the chairs in front of it. It had sort of a benches on the back of it, wooden benches. But if you won another nickel, you got to sit in a folding chair. And he had a big Great Dane dog, friendly as could be, and stuff that we would go down and play at the park and stuff. And I know Bud Joe Eastridge, he was quite a bit younger than the rest of them. We kind of looked after Bud. We kind of raised him, and he was down there, and he had to go to the John. Of course, down there you just went behind a big tree. Well, here come that Great Dane. That was in the middle of whatever he was doing and hit him. And talk about cleaning the kid up with sulfur water. That's what he got. He got a sulfur water bath.
John and Mike, there was one time, and the rest of you, one time when they tore the reunion rides down, they left the chair swing. They were coming back a day or two later to take it down. So my brother Bob and Doug, I was a little too young to be down there with them, but they went down there, and Jeannie Monk McMail and several other people congregated down there, and they figured out how to turn that thing on. So they got that chair swing going, and when it got going pretty high, Bob and Doug jumped out of the swings, but it kept going faster and faster. And Jeannie Monk was in there yelling for them, turn it off, turn it off. And they didn't know how to turn it off. And it kept swinging and swinging. So Maury Flanigan showed up. Now, why would he show up down there? I think he was on the town board at the time. And Maury and somebody else came and shut it off and told him to leave and don't bother that equipment again. So that was a leftover from the reunion. Now, do any of you remember the suicide motorcycle rides?
Yeah.
There'd be a big barrel and a motorcyclist would crank up and start going around, and centrifugal force would keep him on the sides of that barrel. Do you remember that?
And that pretty lady with no legs that was.
Yes, I remembered that, John, is what I was going to mention.
Somebody with no legs?
Yeah, a woman with no legs.
Right.
Oh,
Beautiful,
was riding
beautiful
with
girl.
This guy on a motorcycle.
oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a place where if you knocked all three, I don't know what you call them, they were figures. One was Tojo, Hitler, Mussolini. If you knocked all three of them down, you'd win a prize, and you'd throw a ball at them. They had fuzzy fur out to the side, and the ball would go right through there. They were hard to knock down, but you had to knock them all the way down, all three of them. I remember Tojo, Mussolini, and Hitler. So that tells you about what period of time that was.
Right.
And I think they had a deal where they keep adding weights to those deals.
I think so,
And
yeah.
stuff is at Saturday night. They didn't
Yeah.
knock out many. The same way with the guy that where you hit the ring the bell, you know, with a hammer.
That's right.
They tighten that up.
Yeah.
The English reunion was
Yeah,
something.
that was always something that everybody looked forward to that. The reunion and Fountain Ferry Day. Those were two things that people in English look forward to.
Let's see, how did they advertise the reunion early on? They call it the old soldiers reunion and something else. I can't think what.
Well, the original reunion started just a few years after the Civil War.
Yeah, and it's for the veterans to get together, and they'd
And
have speeches.
my dad would go with his granddad, who was in that would be Elijah Frank Megenity. He was in the Civil War, and at that time was up across from Marcus Lane's house, Bob, in a wooded area.
Yeah, Sloan Center.
That's right.
Had the deal.
And my dad said he remembered as a young boy, there'd be long tables and they'd have big pots of beans cooking. That was the main thing they'd give to the old soldiers that showed
Beans
up.
and cornbread.
Beans and cornbread, yeah. Doesn't sound too bad.
No. Yeah, I think they had that reunion one time, maybe up at the Gillen's Bottom, when they moved from Sloan Avenue there before they moved down to the park.
Okay.
And you know, Gillen Spring is still running,
Yep.
and people stop there and get water.
I used to get a lot of water there, but when the new town was built, I think I saw a sign there that said, no, don't get this water to drink anymore. But I know some people do, don't they?
Yeah, oh, that does. And they have a deal that they put on a stone out there that later, I think it was 1897 that they started using water outlet. And they still do. Dr. Encina's put a sign up that it was unfit to drink, but nobody paid any attention. And there's never been any typhoid or anything in English.
Yeah. One more comment on the Crawford County Historical Society. You know, the Proctor House over at Marengo, Jeremy, you've been there, I know. And John, Gordon, have you been there? The Proctor House?
I have not. I'd like to see it.
Okay. It's I think the oldest brick building in Crawford County, 1837. And the same year that was built, our historical society in Floyd County looks almost like the Proctor House, and it was built in 1837. And I've always wondered if there was a connection on who designed and built those two buildings. They were built the same year, and it seems kind of peculiar to me that both of them look almost identical.
Maybe it's like the Sears and Roebuck House. Remember the Sears and Roebuck Hill between English and Paola?
Sure. Yep. And you know where Sears Roebuck House was in English, don't you, Bob?
Howard Eastridge.
Howard Eastridge's house. Yep, that was the Sears Row, and that was a pretty nice house, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It still is.
Now back to the Proctor House. I'm still worried about that copper drain from the roof. That's going to get stolen sometime.
Oh.
We don't have any outside copper left in Hawaii because it's all been stolen and sold by the druggies.
Yeah.
And that's right out where you can see it. I'm just sure somebody's going to come and knock that off one day.
Oh boy, I don't know. Is it?
You know, Felix Hammond's place supposed to have copper drains and had a slate roofing, slate shingles.
Still there?
Yeah, still there. A
Well,
school
you-
teacher lives there.
Probably don't have any druggies in the town, but I'm thinking that Proctor House is right next to the highway that goes right by.
Yeah.
I think you ought to build a wooden shield around it to make it less obvious.
Well, I'm the director of a little school in New Albany called Division Street School. And I came by there about 2 years ago and I thought, wait a minute, something's missing. They cut our flagpole down. They had some kind of big cutters. It was an aluminum flagpole up about 40 feet. And how much did it gain them? Maybe enough for a couple of drugs that they could use. I don't know, but they sure cut it down. That little school is the oldest segregated school in the state of Indiana, still standing right there in New Albany.
We had at the college, we had copper drains. And there was a guy that came in to do work and he'd bring his lunch pad and the ladies would bring him coffee and everything. He worked for about a week, taking all the copper out of that and taking it away and selling it.
Oh boy.
They thought he was a legitimate worker.
Oh man.
Well, gentlemen, we're coming up on the hour, and I was just looking at the calendar, and the second Sunday of next month is Valentine's Day. So
Well, how about
Sunday,
that?
February 14th.
No problem with me.
I have these sessions in my calendar through next year.
I'll tell you something there that sometimes maybe in the summer that we should meet up to the genealogy building here in English. That maybe it's something we can bat around.
Yeah, John, you can make it. I know John could make it, can't you, John?
We could find out one, John. If he could make it, we'd let him set the date.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll see if the Republic still survives.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll have to wait and see.
Have a wait and see.
Yeah.
Everybody gets your vaccinations.
Yes, for sure. And everybody
will
stay safe, and
Yeah.
we'll see each other, I guess, on Valentine's Day, right?
Right.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Sounds good. All right,
Okay.
everybody, take care.
Michael, take
Good
care
night,
of yourself,
everyone.
Michael.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Granddad.
See us later. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good talking to all of
Bye-bye.
you.
Yeah, very
Bye-bye.
good.
Bye.